Hi, this is Ms. Fazone, and this is Algebra 2, Complex Numbers. Alright, so what are complex numbers? Complex numbers are numbers that can be written as a plus bi, where a and b are real numbers. What is I? I equals the square root of -1. So think about the fact that when we have a negative under the radical, we can't solve that, right? If you have x squared equals -1, what number times itself is -1? There is none. So what the mathematicians did was they said, well, we can't solve this incredibly simple problem, so let's use this letter I to represent it. Okay, so anytime we have a negative under a radical, we're going to use what's called an I. And yes, you should draw it like that with a little tail. Okay? All right, so thinking about that, what if we had the square root of -25? Well, we know what the square root of 25 is, which is what? 5. When you see a negative, you put an I, so 5i. If you really want to put more thought into it, you can think of it as this is really -1 times 25, the square root of -1 times the square root of 25. So that's I times 5. Square root of a -1 is I, square root of 25 is I, 5i. Right? So what would 2 be? The square root of 121 times the square root of -1, right? Square root of 121 is 11. Square root of -1 is I. Okay? Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the pattern. There's a pattern when you deal with i's. Okay? There's a pattern. All right. I to the 0. What's anything to the 0 power? Anything to the 0 power is 1, right? We should know that. What's anything to the first power? I to the first power is just I. Okay? All right, now before we do number 2, let's look on the side. What is the square root of 7 squared? Well, that's the square root of 7 times the square root of 7, which is the square root of 49. So what's the square root of 7? Sorry, what's the square root of 49? 7. So radical 7 squared is 7. So when you take the square root and the square, they undo each other. You're left with the inside, right? So taking that, what do you think I squared equals? I squared equals, well, I is square root of -1. What's the square root of -1 squared? Just like here, these undo each other, you get the inside. So what's the inside here? -1. So I squared equals -1. Okay. I cubed. Now we're going to get a little bit more complicated with the next two. I cubed. So that's I cubed is I times I times I, right? If we put two of them together, what's I times I? I squared times I. But didn't we just figure out what I squared equals? What's I squared equal to? I squared was -1. So we have -1 times I, which is -I. So I cubed equals -I. How about I to the 4th? How about I to the 4th? Let's do that over here. I to the 4th, what's a 4th mean? I 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. We can put these two together. What's those two together? I squared. And then those two together. I squared. What's I squared equal to? Look again. Remember, I squared is -1. -1 times -1. What's -1 times -1? 1. So I to the 4th is 1. All right? What if I asked for I to the 5th? What do you think? Well, I to the 5th, again, let's do it inside. You can write that as I to the 4th times I, kind of like we did with the x's and the radicals. I to the 4th is 1 times I. Do you see the pattern? So it goes 1i, -1, -I, 1i. What would I to the 6th be? -1. I to the 7th. I to the 8th. Good. So do you see a pattern here? I to the 4th equals 1, right? Every 4 i's, it kind of like cancels itself out and you get 1. Kind of like it's like a clock. Every 60 minutes you start over, okay? Every 4 i's we start over, all right? So, if we have I to the 33rd, right? Every 4 i's we start over. So, I to the 4th. How many I to the 4ths are there in I to the 33rd? 8, right? Because 4 goes into 32 8 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All of those together gives you I to the 32. But now we have something left over. What's left over? We have an I left over. But what do all these equal to? What's I to the 4th equal to? 1. I to the 4th equals 1. So this whole thing is 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wait, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times I. What's 1 times 1 times 1 up to I? It's just I. Okay? So this was a lot of work, right? And if we have 99 down here. We don't want to really add that many times. So think about what we did. We are focused on I to the 4th. So we want to see how many times does 4 go into 32 and how much is left over. What's another word for leftover in terms here? Remainder. So what we're going to do here, the general rule, is we're going to divide by 4 and find the remainder. Okay? So 42 divided by 4. How many times does 4 go into 4? Once. 1 times 4 is 4.